Hello everyone, welcome to my 5th art journal. If it's your first time here, my name is Julie. I decided to be an artist and in this channel I share my journey with you. These journals are like a monthly update about everything that happened, and today I am here to tell you about what happened in the month of September. That was definitely an important month for me and a stressful and intense one, because in September is when I started to give classes. A few months ago I told you that I had the opportunity to start giving classes at an atelier for sketchbooking and travel journal class, and it was starting in September. So I had been putting a lot of effort during the summer preparing my classes and probably over preparing. I read books and I watched entire classes and I did a big plan for the entire year of classes, and then I redid it and started over again and again, and I gathered references, and I just did a ton of work in preparation for those classes. And in a sense it was over preparation, but in another sense I also felt under prepared in other areas, it's what I expected. I knew that it was going to be difficult, but I really wanted to do it. I'm sharing this with you as transparently as I can because I believe that it's valuable to see the true experience of someone who is going through something. But for me, it's not the easiest situation because some of my students could be watching this video, and I want to be transparent with everyone, obviously, but it's a bit awkward and I'm a bit vulnerable about this. But anyway, as September was approaching, I was getting more and more stressed and anxious and nervous. I was terrified. So at the beginning of September, we had an open day where teachers would present their classes, and so I had kind of a booth at the atelier with my table, and I brought a lot of sketchbooks and examples for another class that I was going to give. And I was there the entire day meeting potential students and telling them about what my class was about and showing them some of my work. I didn't have any student work to show because it was my first time teaching. It is my very first teaching job, and so I had been preparing some examples in my own sketchbook. Like, I made a sketchbook for this class trying to draw and paint different subjects related to a travel journal, to have something to show as an example and also potentially to use during the class to illustrate some points about composition or different tools or techniques. So there was that, and I think I was at my most nervous and scared and terrified before this. But then after that, it was like the first step had happened and I felt slightly better, but still... No, actually I didn't feel better. I was feeling worse in a sense because I had met first a lot of people in a day. For me, I'm used to working alone and I'm at home most of the time, and I'm not a very social person, so seeing a lot of people in a day it's an event for me. It's not usual and it's tiresome. But so I had been meeting all of these people who were interested in taking this class and talking about them, about what their goals were, what they were expecting, what kind of practice they had with a sketchbook, and everyone was, of course, different. They're all individuals with a very unique path, and I felt it was a lot of input for me and a lot of different information that I just want to give something to people, to students who come. And I want to help them as much as possible to reach their own goals, and I want to meet their expectations as a teacher. And so there were all of these different people who I wanted to serve, and none of them was looking for exactly what I had prepared, but everyone was slightly different in what they want to draw, what they like to draw, and what they were expecting. And so that was a lot of input for me, and I felt, overwhelmed and even more stressed out, and I don't have imposter syndrome in the sense that I don't feel like an imposter. I'm a beginner teacher. I'm not an accomplished artist. I'm not an accomplished sketchbook artist. but I still know that I have some things to give to people. So I don't have a strong imposter syndrome. But after this, I was strongly feeling my weak points. So the first class happened the week after that, and I prepared and prepared and prepared. I repeated, and then the class happened, and of course I didn't use any of the things that I had repeated for, and I was stumbling on my words and all of these lovely things that happen when you speak publicly. By chance, I've done some stage comedy when I was young, and I have this YouTube channel, and I'm not too bad at public speaking, and I can handle a few humiliations. I can live with it. So yeah, if I stumble on my words, I know it's not the end of the world. And so this class went pretty well, in the sense that I had a great time. I just loved it. I love to explain things. I love to try to get to know someone and how their brain works, and how I can tweak the way that I understand something to explain it better for them. It's just an activity that I find fascinating, and that of course it's a lot of work, and there was a lot of preparation, and it's an effort for 2 hours to give this class. I'm exhausted by the end, but at the same time, having to really go deep in my own understanding of drawing concepts is extremely valuable for me, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take this job, and why I couldn't let this opportunity pass, despite the fact that I feel young, and I feel like it's early on my journey to start teaching. Yeah, I couldn't let this pass, because I knew that I was going to enjoy it, and that I was going to take a lot from it. And this first class went very well in that sense. I loved it. I had my head full of people and sentences and ideas and all of that when I left the class. And yeah, I had I had 2 or 3 other classes since then some of them went extremely well, others I felt like I wasn't as good. Overall, my stress levels are much lower now. It's not so difficult, it's not as difficult as it was for the first class to go to class, and yeah, I'm not awfully anxious and stressed and all of that anymore. It's always something. I always have a little bit of stress, but it's slowly decreasing as I gain experience, as I was expecting again, because the first time is always the worst, and since it went well, it made the times after that easier. So yeah, to sum up this first month of teaching, it was extremely stressful. I was over preparing a lot of things and spending too much time on things that I didn't end up using, but I don't believe it is a waste of time, because I needed this to go deep into my subject, and I needed this to be able to do what I did, even if I didn't use it directly. In other areas, I felt underprepared. I can't think of a specific thing right now, but I had a few questions from my students, like, how do you do this? And I was like, I could research it, and I could give you an explanation and a class on it, but just right now, on the top of my head, I don't have a quick and organized answer, because I spend a lot of time preparing my classes. I demonstrate, and I try to give them a very short lesson, but something that they can use. I'm teaching, basically. But it takes more preparation, just like a YouTube video. It takes more preparation than you would think to have in my head a list of points that I know I want to get to, and knowing how I want to go from one point to the other, and to have it organized in a way that each point builds on each other and doesn't leave you or the student missing something, or asking yourself a question and not being in phase with what I'm saying. So yeah, I had a few things like that happened. I started to feel, for the downsides or the more challenging parts, I still have some anxiety about upcoming classes and how I'm going to try to give as much as I can despite not being an absolute master at my subject matter. Yeah, but hopefully it's going to go well. I spent a lot of time for these first classes putting together some handouts and structuring lessons, structuring classes, which was again a lot of work, but something that once it's done, it won't take as much work for me to change it, to adapt it, than it did to research it for the first time. Because the thing is, I am teaching art, but I'm also an art student, and I've been studying art online with New Masters Academy for 1.5 years now, something like that. And everything that I teach, I have learned. And everything that I learned at least 3 different ways with different instructors, different approaches, different ways of understanding and explaining things. And so I'm here trying to figure out how I want to teach a notion. And yeah, it makes me think about how it has served me, what I believe is important about it, in which order, when I believe it should be taught, in which order I need to teach it. Like if you want to explain color, where would you start? What is the most important thing to give first that isn't confusing, that isn't too much information, but that still is something useful and valuable. So yeah, I'm putting together handouts, which is a ton of work, but also very interesting to me. And yeah, I think I've been talking about this for a very long time, but that was the big event of my month of September. And as I got this opportunity and I got into teaching, I also was looking on YouTube or anywhere really for some experiences from beginner teachers, and really I didn't find something like I just shared with you. I didn't find someone sharing their experience as they were starting, and I can understand why people wouldn't want to do that, because as I said, it is a very vulnerable place to be in, because you start teaching, so in a sense you are in a position of authority, and I just want to be as good as I can for my students, but I'm not perfect. I know that I'm not perfect, I know that I'm not a master, but I really wish I were, because I really want to give these people as much as I can, and it's making me want to become a better artist and to be a better teacher. And yeah, it's not easy, because you are in a position where you want to meet people's expectations, to be sharing with the world how you feel about it, how vulnerable and uncomfortable and stressful it can be, but also rewarding at the same time. I hope the idea comes across, because I have so many thoughts about this subject that I can't finish a sentence the way I intend to when I started. So I'm going to stop about teaching. And now for the student part of my life. It was also an exciting month, because as I said in my last art journal, I was about to finish the Drawing Foundations module. So if you don't know me at all, I study art online with New Masters Academy, and I am following their curriculum and their course guide, meaning that I take each class in the order that it's intended. And so they have modules and tracks and all of that. And the first module, which everyone, no matter what kind of art you want to make, everyone has to take, is the Drawing Foundations module. And it says foundations, so you expect it to be quick, maybe. You expect it to be like, yeah, some basic notions, and then I can get into the real stuff. But really, the foundations are the real stuff, and everything you're going to learn after is just like icing on the cake. So it took a long time for me to go through the Drawing Foundations module, and I won't talk too much about it in this video, because a few of you asked me to do a video about my entire experience about the Drawing Foundations module, so I will be recording it later. But big news! I finished the Drawing Foundations module in September, and I'm really happy about it. I'm proud of it, not because yeah, look at me, it's so amazing, it's such an achievement. I am proud of it personally, because I have never studied anything so hard or for so long as I did with this module. It took me a lot of discipline and showing up again and again, and some classes were more difficult than others. But To get back to what I actually did in September, I was taking, for me, the final class of this module that was Introduction to Inking. It's a class with Miles Yoshida and I loved it. Again, I think I'm going to record a review of this class to show you all of the assignments in one single video and give you an overview of what it was about and what I took away from it and what it's especially good for. So in September, I did assignments from weeks 5 to 12. Week 5, if I remember correctly, was drawing hands from life. So I drew this hand in all different angles and poses from life with different tools. I had a great time with this assignment. I just love drawing hands. And I have a strong preference with my tools. Some of them I loved, others I didn't, but I still had a great time doing it. Then week 6 was drawing, week 6 and 7 were drawing animals. I really don't like the one I did for week 6. It was, in many ways I see this as a failure because the demonstration for this week was just an amazing drawing of a cat. And I also chose to draw a cat and mine is not amazing. For week 7, I drew a flamingo. This time with a different technique. It wasn't a dip pen, it was entirely done with a brush. I just used a dip pen for the pupil of the eye of the flamingo because it was just the tiniest little area and it wasn't possible to do it cleanly with a brush because flamingo's eyes are just ridiculously small and the pupil is quite small in the eye. And so I just took my dip pen, dipped it in the ink and just one dot with a dip pen. But overall it was done with a brush and with some ink washes. And I'm very happy about this bird, but I just made a stupid mistake. I entirely forgot to give it a cast shadow, which is my biggest regret with this piece. Otherwise, I was pretty happy about it. I was quite scared about weeks 8 and 9 because those 2 weeks are dedicated to landscape drawing and I'm really not into landscapes or cityscapes or environments in general. I think right now it is my weakest point as an artist. I like to draw things. I don't like to draw environments. It's 1, not enjoyable for me, and 2, not what I am the most attracted to. Maybe these things go together, I don't know. And 3, not what I like the most when I do it. So anyway, we started in week 8 with an urban landscape. I drew it from, I don't know actually if it was the first or the second one. Anyway, so one of them was an urban landscape drawn with a ballpoint pen, and I drew it from a photo reference that I took in my city in the old part of Lyon. We have a big hill in my city, and the historical part of the city that dates back to the Renaissance, and we even have some Roman ruins are located on the hill and just below, and so there is a very old part of the city that is like on the slope of the hill, and we have many small cobblestone, I think it's called cobblestone streets and stairs, and it's a very dramatic view of the cathedral from the top of the stairs. I had a lot of fun drawing it. I received very positive feedback on this one, and I'm glad, I'm happy about this piece in the sense that it is the best I was able to do. But and I also managed to have some fun doing it, but it's not my favorite thing to draw and not my favorite piece either. So the rural landscape was done with ink washes and with a brush, and I used again one of my own photo references that I took in the Alps in November. It is one of the villages that I spent a lot of time in as a child, and a very dramatic, moody view that since I'm not really into landscapes and cityscapes, I tried to pick some photos that I had taken that I found inspiring, and I really liked the mood of this photo. For the drawing, again, I received positive feedback on it. I did my best. I'm not awfully unhappy about it, but it's not my favorite thing. It's yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this drawing personally. Not that I find it's bad, it's just not my personal taste, if that makes sense. And finally, weeks 10, 11 and 12 of this class are all one drawing. It's a self-portrait, and it was my final assignment for the entire module, and so I really wanted to do something that I could be proud of and that I could frame and put on the wall, and that would just end this chapter of my journey on a very high positive note. So I was putting some pressure on myself for this final self-portrait, and Miles' demonstration is of course amazing, and you want to do something just as good. So it is a self-portrait done on toned watercolor paper. You have to tone your paper yourself, which is a very straightforward and for me enjoyable process. But since I was expecting to mess up, instead of just toning one sheet of paper, because it takes quite some time, you have to wait for the layers to dry and you have an entire setup going on your working table, and so I didn't want to have to do this twice. So instead of just toning one sheet of paper, I toned 3. I wanted one for my drawing, another one in case I messed up, and a third one because as I draw, paint with ink or watercolor or whatever, I always have a scrap sheet of paper at my side, at my right side, because I'm right-handed, and I use it to test my strokes, my colors, my ink dilutions and all of this, and I like for this piece of paper to be the exact same paper than the paper I am working on. When you start, it can feel a little bit wasteful because paper can be expensive and it feels precious and all of that, but paper is meant to be used, and I see this sacrificed piece of paper as just as important to the drawing process as the piece where the real drawing is on. So I sacrificed one sheet of paper toned for this because I wanted to be able to test my strokes and my ink dilutions on the same value and the same color of paper than my actual drawing. This isn't part of the class, so if you're ever taking this class, I would advise that you do the same. You don't have to tone an entire big precious sheet of paper, but yeah, definitely tone something else to have something to practice on that is going to give you an accurate representation of what your lines are going to look like on your actual drawing. A big part of the challenge for this self-portrait is that it was done from life, which I had never done before. I had been drawing a few very quick sketchy portraits from life, but never a self-portrait and never something as involved as this. It is a very resolved, finished drawing that took many hours, and that was from life. I could have used a photograph. No one was going, I was about to say to notice, but I believe they would have noticed because it shows when you're working from a photo. Yeah, I still could have used the photo. It wouldn't have prevented me from completing these weeks, I believe. But I really wanted to take the challenge, and I'm glad that I did. It was a challenge. It was quite a setup in front of me to have my mirror slightly, just higher, something under my mirror to have it higher. Yeah, to set up my lighting, because one thing that is so difficult about a self-portrait, or even drawing from life in general, if you don't have a very well thought art studio, is that you want controlled lighting when you create art, because you want to see what you're doing very clearly, and you also want to have controlled lighting on your reference because you want it to be lit in a certain way depending on the effect you want. Most likely you want it, in a lot of cases you want it to be lit with a single light source that highlights the forms of your objects. And okay, that's great. That's very useful information. The tricky thing is, how do you manage those two lighting situations that are not the same? How do you prevent them from interfering with one another? Because I am drawing as I am drawing a self-portrait, I need to lit myself in a certain way, and I also need to have some light on my sheet of paper in a different way. And I just had to make some compromises. I didn't have an ideal lighting for my face, and I didn't have an ideal lighting for my drawing. And I just spent a lot of time talking about it, but it wasn't actually a big deal. As I was drawing, I never thought, oh, this is so bad, it's casting a shadow or whatever. I had to think about it to set things up, but it wasn't such a big deal as I was drawing. But I finished. I'm pretty happy about this portrait. It's not the most like me. I didn't have the best likeness, and some things are bugging me about it. It's also challenging to do a self-portrait because we all have our insecurities and also things that we like about the way we look, and trying to manage the idea we have of ourselves, of our face, and what we see and what we want to look like and what we are afraid that we look like. It can be a psychological thing as well, but it wasn't too bad. Because of YouTube, I'm used to seeing myself and dealing with the way I look. So I don't have any big insecurities that I had to overcome. I already had some opportunities to deal with them. So I finished the module, and it's a piece that I'm very proud of for the challenge that it was, and I'm just happy about the way it turned out, and the hatching and the patterns and all of that. Despite what I said, it is a piece that I'm happy about. So starting my classes and finishing the drawing foundation module were two big things for me, so I didn't have a lot of time. Maybe I had some time, but I didn't have a lot of mental resources to do a lot of personal work, so I didn't this month. I just did a few sketches, and I should have... Let's not burn the house. I did a few sketches in this sketchbook. I'm going to show them slightly better to you, but it's a sketchbook that I've had for some time and that I put aside this summer because I was working on my examples for the sketchbooking class. So just a few things. And I wanted to get back inside it because I have a feeling with sketchbooks that some of them are alive, some of them are asleep, and if a sketchbook is new or dead or asleep, it's harder for me to have a habit to be in it. And when I can take a sketchbook easily and just draw something without it feeling like, I don't know, an effort or something, it feels like the sketchbook is alive. So I wanted to revive this sketchbook in a sense. I didn't do a lot of them, just a few sketches for a few days. And I'm starting to think that I really don't like A5 sketchbooks. So this is an A5 sketchbook. And since I started this entire journey, I finished a few sketchbooks and they're all A4. So if you're in the US and not used to this, A4 is pretty much letter size and A5 is half of this. I think I feel a lot more comfortable with an A4 sketchbook, and going forward, because I turned some pages in this one and I just don't feel like drawing in it. And an A4 sketchbook is just easy for me. It feels natural, it feels comfortable. I like to have multiple drawings on a page rather than having one page as an artwork and then you flip it and the next page is another artwork. I like to just have a lot of things inside my pages, and I have an easier time doing this in an A4 sketchbook. A5, like the size of the page is just the size of one drawing for me, and if I want to have more than that in the spread, I have to draw smaller. I don't know, I don't feel as good about it, and I'm starting to think that maybe it's just about the format and that going forward I may stop trying to force myself to go through these A5 sketchbooks that I have. I have a couple that I started that I don't like to work in, and I may just get some A4 sketchbook moving forward. Talking about sketchbooks, I had a fun little side project during the month of September when I showed you the Stablo easel. I made a review of the Stablo easel. It is a setup for watercolor painting outside. I mentioned that I also had my own idea of design before I discovered the Stablo, and then it's called Stablo, by the way, because it's a French brand. And then I found the Stablo easel, and so I got it and didn't design my own thing. But I still wanted something maybe more compact that could really be in my bag all the time, and I still had this idea of a design. So as a kind of a side project, I designed this thing that's extremely difficult to show on camera. The only way I can show it to you is by showing you all of the disgusting fingerprints on it. Look how gross this is. So anyway, this was my first prototype and it's extremely compact. I'm going to show you my second one. So I designed this thing. I had it made, I received it, and I had a few things I didn't like. The placement and size of these holes didn't work as well as I was hoping. This one as well. The fingerprint thing, I'm not a fan. And so I have a second prototype that looks slightly better. I changed some things here and I added the grid. It is a 5mm grid, so I can use it as a ruler, and it also allows me to... It doesn't hide the fingerprints, but it kind of detracts from it. It is acrylic, so it won't... it's not afraid of water or anything. It's very sturdy, it's extremely lightweight. I believe it's like... It's not 100 grams. I don't remember the weight on the top of my head, but it's extremely lightweight. And it is just the size of an A5 sketchbook, which I said I don't want to use anymore. That's so unfortunate. But yeah, that was my side project. I'm going to show you some video bits that I recorded. I didn't use it outside yet, but I'm extremely proud of this little design. For my second prototype, I even put my logo in there. I don't think I'm going to be able to focus on it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, I even have a logo. Maybe you're seeing it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's better this way. I don't know. So yeah, fun little side project that I just wanted to mention. I'm still working on it in the sense that I want to try it out outside in a real situation. But this is exactly what I wanted, but I didn't find online. Super simple, lightweight, portable, water resistant. I'm not a fan of plastic. I avoid it as much as possible in my life because I find it unpleasant and inaesthetic. But sometimes it is really the best material that you can use, and I believe that for this it is ideal. The fact that it's transparent also looks nice, which is important to me, and allows you to have this ruled thing that I like. Maybe it's not a good idea to show a prototype like this, but I wanted to, and it's done, so whatever. And I also wanted to share this with you. It is the latest issue of the Beautiful Bizarre magazine. I discovered it, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I knew about it for a couple years, maybe, and it was on my wishlist for last Christmas to have a subscription to this magazine because I really like the style that they have, but I didn't get it for Christmas, so I got my subscription myself in January. This is the third magazine that I received, and just to give you a flip through that you can't see anything. Anyway, it's just super inspiring to me. I love the style. It feels great to see some contemporary artists whose style I enjoy so much, and to get a lot of inspiration, a lot of new people to follow. I find the interviews super interesting as well, and I get a lot more enjoyment from this magazine than I was expecting. It takes me a few weeks to read it because I read it one interview at a time, and then when I finish it I like to go follow everyone on Instagram. When I got my subscription, I was thinking that I would probably find one artist that I find inspiring, maybe 2 artists in every magazine, but with every new issue, it's not 1 or 2 artists that I like in the entire magazine, it's the other way around. Everything is amazing, and then there is 1 or 2 that maybe doesn't fit my personal aesthetic as well, but I just want to follow everyone. It gives me a lot of inspiration. I am repeating myself, so that's why I wanted to share it with you, because it's the September issue, and in case you don't know about this publication, I highly recommend that you check it out, and I hope that you will like it as much as I do. My next moves and video and things in terms of my art classes, I am still giving weekly art classes. In terms of my art studies, now that I finished the first module, I am moving forward to the second open module in the figure painting track. I believe I'm going to follow mostly the figure painting track, and so my next classes are going to be the courses included in the figure drawing 1 module. This is where I'm going next. I haven't started yet. I am still waiting for some art materials that I ordered in order to start this, and I also want to address an issue that I've had since I started studying art, that is, I really struggle to do any kind of personal work, and I've been ignoring it and putting it aside for too long. But yeah, what I want to do now is to spend more time trying to work on my own thing and finding what I want to do, my voice, and yeah, just doing a lot more personal work. So I am most likely going to slow down on coursework and try to have a more balanced approach in terms of my study time and my personal artistry time. That's my plan. I have a few videos planned as well. I want to give you a full review of Introduction to Inking because I believe it is a useful video and you seemed to enjoy my sketchbook journey video. And I also have another video planned about the Drawing Foundations module and my full experience with it. So if you want to see this, you can subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you for watching, stay creative, and I will see you in the next one.